What's going on, everybody? So, as you can see, uh, uh, well, you see it on the screen. I seen Scream 6, and I'm gonna try not to be biased since technically I'm like a fan of the franchise since I got 1 through 5. So yeah, I'm gonna try not to be too biased on it, but it's not. It wasn't that really. It really wasn't like even trying to be unbiased. It really wasn't that much I did not enjoy about the movie, but I'm getting ahead of myself. As you can see, like I promised, doing the rest of the review, I told you that I was gonna be giving you the review for Scream 6, and here it is. Scream 6 picks up a year. I think if I remember correctly, the previous Scream was Scream 5 took place in 2022, and this takes place a year later in 2023. And we pick up with Sam, Tara, and the gang in New York City, and it's basically revealed that after the events of the previous movie, they wanted to get away from Woodsboro and everything that happened, so they end up going. Going to college in New York. Now I want to state this for just so I could get it out the way and make sure I stay in the video for one. But this movie is heavily, and I mean heavily inspired by Scream 2. With a little bit of sprinkle of Scream 3 in there, but majority of the inspiration had to come from Scream 2. Because if you haven't seen the movie, if you still haven't seen the movie and are about to go see it, you would know that when you see it as a Scream, if you're a Scream fan like me, you would know that like most of the beats and all that type of stuff are basically love letter like stuff to Scream 2, right? Where the previous Scream took place back in Woodsboro, this takes place in New York, and they got the whole college setting. Somebody's I the killings happen. It takes a lot, and I mean a lot too. Like I don't want to spoil it, but even from the killer's perspective too. But the thing that they do, they got a couple of firsts. But I'm gonna get to that in a minute. So yeah, like I said, it takes place a year later, and they find themselves in everybody's different. Everybody's kind of trying to move on. Sam is getting therapy. She implores Tara to get therapy. Everything is pretty much copacetic, just like how it was with Scream 2. But as we know, with every Scream movie, there's a beginning kill, and boy, I tell you, that beginning kill was brutal, or kills. Who knows? No, yeah, kills. But yeah, it's and it was like, and that's one of the first. They do something that's never been done before. After 6 movies, they literally found something that they never did before in the franchise, and the opening kill is a first. They never did that. Like the opening kill is a traditional, opening kill. The killer says something, slash, and title Scream 6, right? It's still that, but it's the road to get into that title, that slash, and the title screen that's kind of different and yet the same at the same time. But yeah, they do something totally different with that, and we're gonna be keeping track because they got a whole bunch of firsts in this movie. But yeah, that opening kill was a first. But yeah, so the gang find themselves in the midst of another killing spree, and Sam and Tara being the prime targets of the new killer. People are being killed. Mysteries are solved. Kirby comes back. Kirby, and it's interesting to see because that's the one thing I like too, and I'm gonna go into it later. It was about Kirby, but yeah, they run into Kirby, the backstory. We get to see some backstory between Kirby and Sam, and learn how they know each other. Gale is also involved, and it's pretty much standard quo, except for some new twists and new stuff. Yeah, and pretty much you got your Scream movie, killings, and people trying to figure out how to stop the killer, and obviously who is the killer. Same old beats. We got the people not trusting each other, and all the sorts, and we got the big reveal and monologue and the motive. So that's your Scream movie in a nutshell. Um, I'm gonna start with the things I didn't like. Um, and what it's not much. It's not much. Uh, I didn't like the you that there were some people that were just can't, like, it was too much cannon fodder. Um, I want to say I'm all for the gore and stuff. Everything, I was not saying that, but it was just like a character that it really irked me that character was there and we didn't learn about this character. And the first time we see this character, because this character was alluded to earlier in the film, then when we see this character is just, it's a character that just get killed within that same scene the character debuted. So that kind of got me. I'm like, we could have at least got to know the person, right? Um, was there anything else I didn't like? The major thing was that just like the previous one, as you remember, my previous review for the movie, for the previous one, I said that the killers and the motives, I didn't really like the killers and the motives from the last one, because it was obvious, and it was like so obvious that I knew beforehand, and the motive was really just like stupid. Like when they was explaining their motive stuff, I really was like, ugh, okay. Um, uh, but yeah, that was pretty much it. That was just those two things. Oh, but I will say, speaking of which, since we're going to transition over to what I do like that the motive this time was better than the previous movie's motive. Though that's in part to the fact that this movie takes inspiration from the Scream 2. I was only about to call it Scary Movie 2, but Scream 2, ironically, that was for you diehard fans, or if you're not a diehard fan, Scary Movie was the original title for the Scream franchise. Just to put that little fun tidbit out there. It's hard to believe too. Like, wait a minute, the spoof the name for the spoof movies was actually the original name for the Scream movies. And like, yeah, it really was like when they was creating Scream, they really had the original title was Scary Movie, but and it's kind of still in the movie. They still say, "What's your favorite scary movie?" That was actually the title. So, but I digress. But yeah, I do like the fact that the motive for the killer is very much more enjoyable than what the last movie was. Speaking of which, the last movie, I forgot to say that too when I was giving I was talking about like setting up like what the movie was kind of about, was that the previous killers. And the reason why I mention this, because this is another thing I like about this movie. When it came to the last movie, I didn't care about Richie and Amber that much. Like I could care less for them, right? The one thing I like about this movie is that this movie did something that the previous movie couldn't do, was that this movie made me care more about Amber and Richie than the movie with the killers in it. and that's in due in part to the shrine, how they implemented the shrine thing, and we all seen that in the trailers. I'm gonna get to that in a minute because that's another thing I like about the movie. But yeah, Richie, they expand more on Richie and Amber as killers in this movie, and even revealing how they even reveal who and what who did most of the killings. Something that's another first. Something that previous movies had never done. Even the original trilogy, none of the movies ever like got into who did more what. Like we don't even know between Billy and Stu who did most of the killings. And so this movie actually has a character mention that a certain one between. I'm not gonna tell you which one, but a character did mention that either Richie or Amber did more of the killing. So that was a cool thing. Speaking of which, like I said, the next thing I liked about the movie was the shrine. The shrine thing. Like when I saw that in the trailer, I'm like, they said they even said that this is a shrine of, and they had all the they had all the exact numbers of how many killers has been up until this point, and and in the movie, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, they don't really say it in the trailer, but I'm thinking to myself, are these the original costumes of the previous killers, or this is just like them them getting the costume and just setting them up and all that, and it turns out I was right. It wasn't the latter; it was the former. My first thought was right. This is the actual shrine, and these are the actual killers' costume, and how the new killer came is how they implemented it is like it was more than a nostalgia trip. They didn't just use it for nostalgia. It was actually one of the main plot points of this movie. It actually helps you figure out who the killer was and what the link to what the killer was trying to say. And it really I'm like, okay, they didn't just bring it back, and that whole room is nothing but a shrine to every killer. Like it was like they had weapons. Like it wasn't just the costumes. You could tell, like, and the added detail to the fact that how long it's been since like the first movie. Like killers from back then, like Billy and Stu's costume was more decrepit than say Jill and Charlie's costume, obviously because of the years, and I like that attention to detail. And but yeah, I like that whole room had everything in it, and and by everything I mean it was all evidence. Like the killer somehow, some way got, and I'm just saying that for the video purposes, without spoiling it. But the movie tells you how, but somehow, some way, the killer was managed to acquire which is basically evidence. All that in that shrine room is evidence from the previous crime scene, and like it's not just from like when the killer was caught. It was from even the killer's crime scenes before they got caught. Everything about the killer, including their costumes and stuff and knives, were somehow acquired and put in this shrine. Even the knives even had the blood. I like that detail too. That the knives of each killer still had the blood from the last person they stabbed before they would stop. Like Charlie's knife still had Kirby's blood on it, and Billy's knife still had his and cause I think if I remember correctly, the last person that Billy and them stabbed with the knife was each other, and they still have their blood on it. Like it was that attention to detail. Speaking of which, Kirby, that's another thing. I like how they brought her back and gave details too. How not only how she survived the killings in Scream 4. I like how they, her character development, how that inspired her to do what she's doing currently in the movie. it's pretty much, yeah. I don't think it's nothing else to say about Kirby other than that. And I like, that she's still Kirby. Like, she still got the quirkiness and the movie trivia-ness of Kirby, but you can tell too by the fact that she's a lot older now. She kind of moved away from that. Um, I think the only thing I could say was that her and Sam's interaction. I like that. That's part of like the Kirby thing. So I'll just leave that as part of the whole Kirby and Sam interaction being that. Now for the kills. The kills in this movie is brutal. I mean, capital B, brutal. I mean, I haven't seen this level of brutality since the first Scream. I don't think. Yeah, I don't think the since the first Scream. I could be wrong. But not since the first Scream. I know that I've seen that somebody was either involved, like disemboweled or dismembered. Like we have that level of gore. Like the last time I remember seeing somebody's guts from being stabbed and stuff was part one. I don't think part two did it. I don't think part three even did, or part four or five. And part five was, I would say part five was the closest because it was kind of brutal how many times they was gonna stab Tara, but yeah, it was cool to see that they brought back that level of brutality from part one. That was a little, I forgot to say, that was a little sprinkle of the part one in there. They sprinkled another. I like the thing. Speaking of part one, I like another thing. I like was that how they sprinkled in information from part three that haven't been mentioned since part three. Like the fact that, and by that I mean they talk. Thanks to the whole thing about the shrine, they talk about every single killer up until that point, and this will be the first movie to acknowledge Roman Briggs as the killer in Hollywood. But the thing I also like too about it was that it seemed, you could tell that details about him was kept secret, which I thought they did. Was that it seemed like characters in the movie don't know the whole story about Roman Briggs, because the way how they tout Billy as being the mastermind. Yeah, you could tell nobody they don't got the 100% facts, and that's probably because of something I hope they explore more in the future movies, where they talk about why people don't know the whole truth, and how Cindy probably working with Mark and Dewey and Gail kept that information about Roman being her brother and being the one who started all of it, which is kind of messed up. The fact that your mother's son is the one who started all this. Get ready to end the video here, because this video is probably going on too long. But I don't think there was another. Other than that, I'm trying to figure out, was there anything else that I like about it? Oh, that was all for the good things. I forgot the other bad thing I didn't like was that the New York setting didn't do anything for me. That was what I was trying to remember. That's why I could remember it was either more good or bad, but it was one more bad and I just remember it. That whole New York thing didn't work. Well, I want to say it didn't work. It just didn't matter. It didn't really matter to me that they was in New York. Other than the only time it actually worked for me that they was in New York, where how New York is so New York that stuff can happen, people not really notice it and not be oblivious to what's going on, like how a killer could be, if a killer was on the train and the killer basically went up to one of the characters, stabbed this character, and left this character on the train. Well, not even left it. They sat there with the blade in this character, twisting it and all that. And all they did was kept looking back to see that everybody in this particular section. And trust me, you don't know what I'm talking about, because I just pretty much gave the whole scene. But this all happened in a group of people. There's only one place in New York where a whole bunch of group of people was compacted together, and you can figure that out from there. But this character gets stabbed, and They look. The killer's looking around. You see a person right in front of them, just sleep. Didn't hear not one thing, and it wasn't. Nobody noticed it until the other character that was with this character made a scene and realized that this character was down and hurt. Um, but yeah, that I guess that could be another thing I said I liked about the movie was that they did kind of sort of use it did kind of work, but at the same time it didn't work. Overall, I would give this Scream. I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. I want to give it an 8, but that's me being biased. Giving it an 8 or giving it an 8 or 9 would be biased because it was better than the previous. I don't know. I can't remember what I gave the previous movie. I'll figure that out. But for right now, I'm saying I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. Big ups, but I'll go back because if I gave the previous one a 7, I would give this like an 8, or as I gave if I it would stay at 7 if I gave the previous one a 6, but yeah, right as it stands right now it's a 7. It's a good movie. Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about the first. Um, I did tell you about the first with the beginning kill. It's like a couple of firsts. I'll say this because I said I was going to end the video. There's a post. That's another first is that there's a post credit scene, and that you really don't have to go. You don't really have to stay if you don't want to. I'll tell you this: the importance of the post credit scene is that you don't have to stay if you don't want to see it. You're not really missing anything. It's mostly for like kicks and giggles. Um, But there's a post credit. That's another first. I told you one with the beginning kills, another with the post credit scene, and then the rest is pretty much like almost at the end. It has to do with the killers themselves. They do something with the killer that's never been done before. It's with the reveal. It's the first time this has happened in the franchise, but it's not a new concept. This is why I say it's heavily inspired by part two, is that this concept that they do with the killer was originally meant to happen in Scream 2 if it wasn't for the rewrites. One of the scripts for Scream 2 had this reveal, this killer reveal, and that if it didn't get rewritten, that's how Scream 2 would have ended. And while they didn't do it there, they do it here. So that's that. If you enjoyed this video, you know what to do. You hit this button right there in the upper right corner for all of my movie reviews. And if you enjoyed the video so much you want to support the channel, all you gotta do is hit those buttons. And as always, hit any one of these videos for more amazing content. But don't go anywhere because I got some reactions and gameplay coming your way. Scream. Resident Evil will be coming soon. So, peace.